Okay, let's try that once again, this time with feelings. Welcome to the program agenda. I'm your host, Cito Beltran, and this time I do hope you can hear me. Those are the drawbacks of technology. Most of the time they're good, and once in a while you either have flickering video or you can't get the audio. But I think the studios fixed the problem. So now it's back to the program, October 17, 2022. It's a Monday. Welcome. And thank you for those of you who are subscribers of Cignal TV, viewers of One News, and for those of you who want to catch us or want to recommend us to your friends, we can be seen also via facebook.com/onenewsph. And with the same entry, you can also watch us on YouTube. And of course, if you have the Cignal Play app, you can watch us. Before we start with a serious program, I'd just like to greet and acknowledge my friends who I spoke with over the weekend. Mr. Serge Capistrano and Senen Capistrano. Mga kuya sa sabong, good morning sa inyong dalawa. And to our viewer, Sid Toledo, who was asking for a cell phone number for feedback for agenda. Sorry, Sid, we had it for more than a year, but it wasn't efficient, so we dropped it. You can just indicate your feedback on the agenda Facebook account or where you reached me. Richard De Leon of Batangas, if you give me all of the information on the electricity rates that are higher than Metro Manila, then we can tackle it on the program. And Dr. Emily Roleda, thank you very much for your continued support. Okay, let's now go to our daily starter. And it comes from the book of Hebrews, chapter 10, verse 23 in the Bible. Let us hold unswervingly to the hope we profess, for he who promised is faithful. Okay, that's important to reflect as we start the week, because many of us, we profess a certain belief, a certain faith, a certain ideology, whatever. And sadly, while we say, I believe, when there is doubt, when there is challenges, when difficulty arises, we start acting like we never believed. And there are also some who say, I believe in God. And then when they come across someone who does not share their belief or who has contrary ideology or opinion, whether it's business, whatever, they start acting very unlike what they profess to be. So sabi nga nila, no, panindigan natin, kumapit tayo sa ating paniniwala, sa ating pananampalataya. Dahil ang may kapal, ang Panginoon, ang Diyos, huwag niyo sabihin the God above or the man above or the boss, God, okay? He who promised is faithful, maaasahan, okay? And that is what the latter half of my life has been based on. That while I am not always reliable, God is faithful and reliable. Okay, now let's go to the front page of the Philippine Star and the headline for today, October 17, 2022, Monday, Remulla, resignation never entered my mind. Secretary of Justice Crispin Boying Remulla in a live stream interview expressed that he never thought, okay, hindi sumayad sa kaisipan niya yung mag-resign in connection with his son, I think his eldest, Remulla III, his son Juanito Jose Remulla III, okay, was arrested with drug charges for high-grade marijuana. Okay, so now at the top of the front page, we have Neneng, now a typhoon, or actually becoming a typhoon, now leaving the Philippines. Thousands were evacuated over the weekend because of Typhoon Neneng hitting northern Luzon, extreme northern Luzon, and marami po, 5,000 plus yata families yung mga naapektuhan. So we will get an update from our first guest on that subject after the front page. Meanwhile, new Omicron subvariant may be in the Philippines. Okay, the subvariant XBB. Bakit puro ba double B tayo ngayong umaga? Okay, XBB could be causing the country's daily 2,000 COVID-19 infections, according to epidemiologist Dr. Ron Jean Solante, or infectious disease expert Ron Jean Solante. So yan po, mag-ingat kayo because COVID-19 remains to be in the Philippines. In fact, 2 of my friends came down with COVID-19 just last week. Ito yung mga taong maingat dahil senior citizen din sila, very health conscious. Ayun, tinamaan pa rin because you may not be going around too much, but if you have domestic helpers, you have drivers, houseboys who always go out, or number 1 transmitter, okay? Yung apo na meron palang COVID, hinalikan ng buong barangay. Ayun, lahat sila sa pool. Okay, now, invest while dollar is strong. Okay, Negosyo founder Joey Concepcion encouraged OFWs to invest wisely in the country to counter how the weaker peso may be wreaking havoc on consumer spending. So, kumbaga, malakas yung kinikita nyong dollar ngayon or mataas ang halaga, it might be good to invest either on real estate, property, housing, or business in the Philippines. So, ayun po, no? That top photo of the Philippine Star with 2 policemen in shorts is a photo of Manila Police District Director Brigadier General Andre Dizon conducting an ocular inspection at the Manila North Cemetery. Okay, the city government will only allow vaccinated visitors to the Manila North and South cemeteries between October 29 and November 2. So remember, if you are not vaccinated, you are not fully vaccinated, you will not be allowed to enter the cemetery. Lalo na wag na po kayong magdala ng mga may sakit lang mga bata kasi pauuwiin din kayo. The center photo of that little boy with his eyes covered, he is not playing with binoculars. He is actually getting his biometric information taken as he is registered under the National Identification Card System. Yung pong suit-suit niyang yun yung pang camera, taking an image of the eyes, ano ba yun, iris yata yun or something, system. I just can't remember it. Okay, now, PNP, no guidelines for checking on journalists. The Philippine National Police spokesperson, Colonel Jean Fajardo, reiterated that there were no specific instructions regarding police coordination with media personalities, especially to go house to house o bahay-bahayin, bisitahin sa kanilang mga tahanan ang mga media. Okay? This is a result of the post of television news reporter JP Soriano ng DZBB, okay, saying that a policeman who claimed to a person who showed the identity card of a police officer but wearing plain clothes visited him at his residence asking if he had ever received death threats in connection with the recent slay of a radio anchorman and death threats made at our fellow anchors Lord De Vera and Ed Lingao of TV5. Yun po, no? So anyway, the PNP responded or reacted by saying there are no such orders. It was wrong of this particular police officer to visit the house because hindi dapat sa bahay pinupuntahan daw, etc. And also not to wear the uniform. Lalo pag ninervous yata si JP because sinabi pa sa kanya, Sir, pwede ba mag-selfie tayong dalawa para meron lang akong documentation na binisita kita. Iyan po, medyo nagiging style ngayon ng mga delivery boys, yung mga motorcycle na pag may dineliver, kukunan kayo ng picture. Okay, medyo sablay daw po yun. Okay, further down the newspaper, we have a photo of various business leaders, big-time business leaders with President BBM, with Martin Romualdez, Speaker of the House, and also with the Secretary of the DENR, Maria, DNR Secretary Maritoni Loizaga. Okay. During the DNR Multi-Stakeholders Forum. Okay. And the last two pieces of news, that photo again, an employee arranging packs of sugar at a supermarket in Quezon City. A House Bill, the Makabayan Bloc recently filed House Bill 5504 to seek exemption of VAT on basic commodities. Last but not the least, Kibuloy loses cyber libel case versus Pacquiao. Okay. The Davao City Prosecutor's Office junked the cyber libel charges that the evangelist Apollo Kibuloy filed against former Senator Manny Pacquiao after Pacquiao said, ayokong sumama dyan sa forum na yan o program ng television group na yan because the person who owned it is facing criminal charges in the US, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so yun po. Basahin nyo na lang. Please read the details of all of this news item and more in the Philippine Star, which you can buy at the Kanto or go online. We'll go for a quick break. When we return, we start with our interviews here on Agenda. Welcome back to the program agenda, and we start this week with what I hope will be an informative conversation, if not a business lecture or a lesson in economics. As you may recall, last week we had Professor Leiko who told us what the effects will be concerning the IMF declaration that the first quarter of 2023 will feel like a recession. And if you feel that right now life is economically difficult, then the worst is yet to come. So we invited a fellow columnist who writes for the Business World to help us talk about all the developments that's going on and the stuff that he has been paying attention to, but also to get to know more about our associates in the business and our sister company here in the MVP group. Let's roll out the Betamax, Gabby.
Bienvenido Nonoy Oplas has been a columnist at BusinessWorld since 2015. His column titled My Cup of Liberty discusses and analyzes various economic topics in the country. Aside from this, Oplas is the founder and president of Minimal Government Thinkers, a free market think tank in Manila.
Nonoy, good morning. Welcome back to the program.
Good morning, Cito, and thank you for the invitation.
Watching the introduction, something caught my eye. Minimal government thinkers. Parang may sinasabi ka, title pa lang ng grupo mo, meron ka ng pinaparamdam. What exactly is this Minimal Government Thinkers group?
So, it's a think tank advocating minimal government or small limited government, no? Hindi pwedeng lahat na lang gobyerno. Ang mangyayari kasi, a lot of personal responsibility like healthcare ng mga anak, education ng mga anak have been abandoned and have been abrogated by the government already. And I don't think it is a good philosophy. So, a think tank for minimal government.
Okay, and what are the programs or what are the goals or visions of minimal government thinkers?
Yeah, mainly to reassert individual liberty, free market, and rule of law. Kasi while government expands, it violates the rule of law because the rule of law says that the law applies equally to unequal people. No one is exempted and no one can grant an exemption. So as government expands, it creates so many laws, but exempting this sector and subsidizing this sector. Or endless types of double standard, and I think that these are violations of the rule of law. So if government will still be limited only on main function to protect the people's lives, protect the people's right to private property, and protect the right to liberty, I think that will be an optimal role for government, and not government into running casino, running universities, running lotto, etc. No? Parang medyo government overreach na.
Okay, because people have said that government's primary responsibility to its citizen is law and order, then food, shelter, and education. What about those? Because I remember growing up with those set of expectations from elementary through high school, na iba na lang sa college because syempre you rarely talk about government in college unless it is related to your course. But what about that? Yung food, shelter, education, and law enforcement?
Yeah, law enforcement is related to the government three main functions. Kasi pag binalik kami yung classical liberal philosophy with the John Locke, David Ricardo, Adam Smith, they are only talking about three main functions of government: to protect the people's right to life against murderers, right to private property against thieves and arsonists, and right to liberty against bullies and dictatorship. So that is the three main functions. In fact, if you look, Cito, There's no government palengke, government grocery, government talipapa, and yet people are eating. There's also no government farm, and yet people are eating. Compare that with, say, in healthcare, where there's so many government hospitals, government clinic, government drug price control, etc., and healthcare problems are unlimited. So I think it's the comparison between food and healthcare. Food, where practically there is no government enterprise, and in healthcare, where there are so many government enterprises, there's less problem in food than in healthcare.
Okay, that's interesting. So what has happened in the Philippines through several decades, I think in the last 40 years, especially as a pushback to the impact of or effects of martial law, is that every sector maneuvered, positioned to get government to address their concerns or their needs or their priorities. Kumbaga, yung meron na tayong ayuda, yung pangtawid pamilya program, you have all of this universal healthcare, etc., etc. So everybody votes its own party list representatives, sector representatives, but has it made governance and government service any better, or is it now worse than, let's say, before Ferdinand Marcos Sr. became president?
I think in terms of fiscal conditions, getting worse now. No, like for instance, from 2020, 2021, 2022 until about 2025, 2026, government will be borrowing 2 to 2.5 trillion pesos a year. That is net, Cito, meaning may gross borrowing tayo minus principal amortization. Ang net borrowings natin every year from 2020 until about 2025 or even beyond is 2 trillion pesos a year. Yearly. If you have 2 trillions of new borrowing, that means technically you will need at least 2 trillion pesos of revenues, whether through higher taxes and fees and penalties and fines and or privatization. So masyadong mabigat. Parang yun na nga, I think that the philosophy that, pwede kang pakuya-kuya-kuya because your children's education, your children's healthcare is not your responsibility, it's government responsibility. And I think even with zero corruption in the implementation of the policies, the philosophy itself is already wrong and corrupt. And that is what we want to highlight. No? Please go back to personal and parental responsibility. Hindi lahat gobyerno. Kasi nga ang kasabihan, a government that's big enough to give everything you have is also big enough to take everything you have.
Okay, if it's big enough to give everything you need, it is also big enough to take everything you have.
Yes.
Okay, that's a very nice reminder to all of us. Now, according to Senate Minority Leader Aquilino Coco Pimentel, each Pinoy now owes, lahat ng Pilipino ngayon ay may utang na 119,458 pesos based on all the foreign and local debts or loans undertaken by the Philippine government, both past and present. Does this mean, Nonoy, that we are now back to square one? Because I remember when we came out of the Marcos dictatorship, martial law dictatorship, we had to crawl our way out of our debts or loans with the IMF, World Bank, until one day they said, okay, libre na ang Pilipinas. They have religiously paid all the loans, although people have said we never really benefited from them. But are we back to square one again?
Generally, yes. No, kasi yun na nga. I think the one big indicator of the burdens of the public debt is that interest payment alone, we were paying 360,000 billion pesos in 2020, 380 billion pesos in 2021, and this year we'll be paying about 500 billion pesos. interest payment alone, excluding principal. So the more that we borrow, the more that we will be paying interest payment, and therefore the more resources will be taken away from basic services, including infrastructure. So it's really tawag doon, vicious circle na napasukan natin.
Okay, now going back to the minimal government thinkers, what solutions does your group? How big is your group? No, if I may ask. Or who are the prominent members, driving force for minimal government thinkers?
We don't have much prominent members, but we only have prominent inspirations like Adam Smith, David Ricardo, John Locke, Frederick Hayek, Friedrich Mises, Milton Friedman, etc. No? So these are the like one time Milton Friedman talk about inflation. He says that inflation is taxation without legislation. And I think that inflation, people now are more worried about inflation than taxes, etc. No, I think that I wrote it in my column last week that while it was a big issue for the Philippines to have 6.9% inflation in September, but actually it's only 4 years low. That was the 6.9% was equivalent to the 6.9% on October 2018. Now, if you compare that with Germany, they have 10% inflation in September, and it was the 70 years high. That was the highest since 1952 for Germany. And I think it's really a big issue because Germany is the biggest economy in Europe, the fourth largest economy in the world, and the most industrialized country in Europe. And you have 70 years high inflation. I think that speaks a lot what they are doing. And for Netherlands, it's 51 years high. For US, UK, and Canada, you have 40 years high. So,
so in plain English, Nonoy, what are you saying that mas masama tayo, or we are worse off, or we have performed worse than all those countries in terms of managing inflation?
Yeah, we're better off. We're better off.
Okay.
To these countries. Sila talagang, kumbaga, talamak na sa kanila. Kasi sila, Cito, kasi like point, for the industrialized country, the inflation is usually very low, like 1% a year. Kung minsan, 1.5% umaaray na sila na 2%. Now you have 10% inflation rate and 70 years on. I think that is practically deindustrialization, degrowth economic.
But is inflation merely a matter of supply and demand? Because I would like to think, I think what we should be paying attention to more is unemployment.
Yes.
Diba? Kasi kahit na mura ang bilihin, however cheap goods and services may be, if you don't have money, if you don't have jobs,
yes,
then it is of nothing to discuss. Gutom pa rin tayo.
Yes. I think that in terms of inflation, employment figure, I think we are still relatively better off, no? And in fact, doon sa baryo na pinupuntahan ko sa Pangasinan, magugulat kasi ito, zero unemployment. Lahat may trabaho. Kung minsan magpapatanim ka ng palay, wala kang makuha kasi people are doing construction jobs in Dagupan, in Manila, or in a solar plant somewhere, no? Lahat may trabaho.
Yeah, but may trabahong may kinikita ba o
May
trabaho
kinikita, yes.
just to survive? Because I've seen the same situation in Lipa, Batangas, where there is apparently a high demand for workers. It's hard to get day workers or laborers, but wala ring tigil yung mga, sir, pwede ho bang humingi ng tulong, or can we borrow for the tuition or for to buy uniforms, etc. Because parang, yes, there are jobs, but they suck. They don't pay decent salaries.
Yes. I think that yun nga yung balik tayo sa inflation, no? Because it's really the main issue of the Filipinos now. The number one, masyadong malayo na yung number two and number three. And you are correct that inflation is mainly a function of supply and demand, both of commodities and money supply. Because when government prints more money represents demand. So maski walang trabaho yan, pag binigyan mo ng pera, gagastos yan. And that will create upward pressure on prices. So both may problema tayo doon sa commodity, sa supply and demand of commodities, as well as may problema tayo sa supply and demand of monetary supply.
Okay, so what solutions do you propose? Because when I was speaking to Professor Leco last week ng Pamantasan ng Maynila, when I said, shouldn't we just simply go on a campaign, a massive campaign to plant your own vegetables, food, etc.? Because if the recession is going to happen third quarter of 2023, and we are now 2 months away to the end of the year, there's still time. Kung magtanim tayo, may aanihin tayo, mga fruits, vegetables, etc. At least mabawasan yung personal expenditure for food. Kumbaga, hindi ka na maglalabas ng pera, yung perang pambibili mo ng gulay, whatever, magagamit mo sa iba.
Yes, that is true. Kasi ang kung talaga, we have to keep producing goods. No? Kaliwa kanan, increase production of rice, vegetable, chicken, poultry, practically everything, including services like more haircut, more transportation, etc. Just keep expanding, and I think that the main function of government here is to reduce the distortion. Like for instance, ang paborito ko talaga na issue dito yung oil tax that was under the train law. Because oil is a useful good. It is a public good and it is not a public bad. And I believe that the tax on oil, diesel, gasoline, etc. should be zero and not 6 pesos for diesel and 10 pesos for unleaded gasoline. Kasi ngayon wala na gumagamit ng cow de carabao sa pag-aararo. They use rotor tractor. Maski hand tractor hindi na ginagamit. Maski pag-harvest na rin hindi na ginagamit ng manual harvest. They use the combined harvester thresher machine. So lahat, pati yung irrigation, sometimes they use gravity, but in many instances they use also.
Yeah, because in the past, economists and lawmakers always labeled fuel as for the rich. Kumbaga, ang gumagamit lang ng krudo at gasolina yung mga mayayaman. But now, konti na lang nga yung mayayamang nagbiyahe-biyahe at karamihan talaga use their cars to go to work. Yes. Or use fuel and diesel and gasoline to generate power plants, to run bangkas or tricycles, etc. But ayaw naman talaga ng government. Kasi sasabihin sa'yo, Nonoy, if we do that, if we start cutting taxes, etc. on the essential goods, we will not be able to pay our loans. I have been pushing for a serious budget cut and austerity campaign of government. You're the economist in the room for all intents and purposes. What's wrong with that? It was done in Israel by, I think it was Rabin or one of the heroes of Israel. I just can't remember. But when he became prime minister, this guy in Israel, he imposed a severe austerity measure. Every department was to cut back by, I think, 30%. And they were able to, to survive the worst inflation in Israel's history. That is in fact among our advocacies to really cut expenditure, no. Hindi pwedeng tax cut, puro tax increase and borrowing increase. There should be a significant reduction in spending. Particularly Cito, for instance, yung mga ayuda, no. If you create new ayuda, that is actually an implicit statement that the previous ayuda are not working. So if you have to create new ayuda or welfare program, you should abolish some or significantly shrink some existing welfare program. Hindi pwedeng, kasi nga ngayon nagpapatong-patong eh. Like for instance, but you're going to, sorry Nonoy, you're going to be punishing the poorest of the poor. I mean, I'm just using the arguments that are going there now because you're correct. Last week, someone came out with the data saying that the recipients of the Pangtawid Pamilya program remain poor. After all the ayuda that was given to them, they still remain poor. But then someone will say, we did not do that to get them out of poverty. We did that so that women will have their medical checkups, the children will be given their medicines, their vitamins, and that they will be enrolled in school. Kumbaga, it was ayuda for better health for women's reproductive health care and for children to go to school. So if you remove those ayudas, then zero balance na naman tayo.
No, not exactly you're removing. It's just that if you have to create new ayuda, you should shrink some old existing ayuda. Kasi parang
okay.
patong-patong eh. If you,
hindi yung ayuda para sa mahirap, pero siguro are there programs? I mean, you know, one of the things, ikaw may pet peeve ka. Ano yung sabi mo kanina, yung talagang pinag-ayun sa oil tax, no? Ako naman, ang kinaasaran ko, one thing that really annoys me is every time they kept talking about build. Sabi ko, anong binild nila? Lahat ng mga sinasabi nilang build, ginawa ni MVP, ginawa ng San Miguel, ginawa ng Ayala, pero sila yung bida. Now, do we really need to do this? Build, because I've spoken to some of the captains of industries and they said, we have the money, we can build all those so-called infrastructures if they just stop meddling and harassing us.
That is true, Cito. No? Like for instance, yung San Miguel, they have a plan to extend the South Expressway down to Matnog, Sorsogon. So you can go to, kaya problema yung mga right of way problem, etc. And ayong favorite ko diyan, Cito, yung yung Kaliwa Dam. Naka-private dapat yun eh. That was December 2015. Mayroon ng 3 pre-qualified bidders ang PPP Center. That was the last 6 months of the Pinoy administration. Hindi nila nagbigay kasi in deference to the new administration. Pagdating din December 2016, instead of affirming what the PPP Center has pre-qualified, ang ginawa nila Duterte Dominguez, sabi na, the pivot, no, we will not do it PPP. We will borrow from China. So, December 2016, na-sign ng 2018, and sa awa ng Diyos, 2023 na next year, wala pa rin nangyayari. So,
no, but even the Sunny Dominguez, the guy who was behind all of this we go to China move, was the one who threw up his hands and said, you can't negotiate with these people. You can't get anything. You can't move forward. So they chucked it all out the window.
Yes, very important talaga yung role ng PPP Center. And also, actually, if you look at the various reports by the DPWH, like for the new roads, actually, ang ginagawa nila, babakbakin nila yung hindi naman maganda na kalsada, tapos lalagyan ng bagong kalsada, and report it as new road. When in fact, there's no new road actually.
No, like EDSA, the EDSA bus carousel lane. I remember about a month ago, nakita ko yon, binasag nila kasi nagka-traffic. And then, I said, okay, kiss that goodbye. We're gonna have no roads. We will have one lane less for EDSA going north. And then, yung pala, pagkabasag nila, that very same weekend, they laid out new concrete, the super magic concrete, and before you know it, within a week, people were already using it. And someone pointed out that, you know, you use all this new magic concrete, walang reinforcement bars, walang strengthening, walang proper curing. Of course, in 6 months, basag na naman yan. And then, we don't do weight restriction. Wala tayong mga weigh scales, weigh bridge for all our highways. So itong mga trucks sa mahal ng crudo, oversized, they're not built for Philippine roads.
Yes, so yun na nga. But there was a study by Dr. Noel De Dios, na my former teacher at UPEC. He computed the ICOR, incremental capital output ratio. So that is measuring how much efficient are the infrastructure compared to value added in the economy. Ang lumalabas sa study niya, mataas yung capital outlay and infrastructure spending during the Duterte administration, but it's also the most efficient. Kasi ang mangyayari dito, there was a lot of infrastructure spending but they are not really, yun nga, tulad nung gagawa ka ng 3 lanes na kalsada tapos pagdating sa dulo nagiging 1 lane, so nagiging useless yung 2 lanes. O kaya yung magandi naman pangit na kalsada, babakbakin mo siya, sarain mo, lalagyan mo and count it as infrastructure spending, but actually in terms of actual contribution to the production of goods and services is practically little or minimal.
Okay, now, so if you were to be asked, where would you go? Because right now it seems to be borrow, borrow, borrow with the promise of build, build, build versus a real austerity program. Kasi parang, hello naman, ang daming mga ambulance. Lahat ng barangay may ambulance, which I am not against, pero sabi ko parang dalawa ambulansya, 3 ambulansya, wala namang garahe, nakaparada. Most barangays have so many vehicles. Meron ng fire station ng BFP, magse-set up pa sila ng kanilang mini brigades, etc. And so I said, the money is not going to the right places. They're just purchases so that someone can make money.
Yes, that's true. I think for now, where do we go? I think for me, I will just prioritize 2 measures. One is to cut expenditure, particularly by the national government, because many local governments have now more resources because of the Mandanas ruling. Like for instance, yung share ng allocation to local government in 2021 was about 850 billion pesos. By 2022, it went up to 1.1 trillion pesos, ang laki. So maybe now is the time to cut spending by the national government and to allow the local government to do more function. Ang second, Cito, large-scale privatization. Ang daming assets ng government, like for instance, military camps, state universities camp. Ang lapad-lapad ng lupa nila, nagpipesta yung mga palaka at mga ahas doon, and they're still getting subsidies. Why can't we just privatize many of those things the way that they privatize Fort Bonifacio, and now it's become a vibrant commercial and financial center. So large-scale privatization, maybe starting with the low-hanging fruit like Pagcor Casino and PCSO, and then some government specialized hospitals, etc. And then large-scale cut in spending, particularly by the national government, and allow more roles for the local government.
Okay, let's go for a quick break, Nonoy, and when we come back, let's talk further about all of this, more on what every Filipino can do, as you pointed out, as a minimal government thinker. We'll be right back here on Agenda. Okay, welcome back to the program agenda. I'm your host, Cito Beltran, and still with us today is Nonoy Oplas, columnist of Business World, as well as founder, I believe, of the Minimal Government Thinker Group, think tank. And let's continue our conversation, Nonoy. Now, as far as ordinary Filipinos are concerned, you were saying that we should take more responsibility and a proactive role in the education of our children, their health care, etc., instead of many Filipinos who are relying on government for free tuition, even in college, relying for universal health care or field health, etc. What with the in the advent of a recession in the end of the year, what can Filipinos do proactively?
Yeah, just keep. People should really be more. Think to be very productive. No, always producing something. No, so if you cannot have urban gardening, maybe you should do into food processing, like for instance, bibili mo sa palengke at gagawin mong masarap na pagkain and find your own consumers. Ang important really is to keep producing goods and services. And second, yung philosophy nga talaga na more self-reliance and not state-dependent, no? More self-reliance kasi hindi pwedeng magagalit tayo sa mataas na taxes kasi yun pala kasama tayo dun sa papabigat ng taxes kasi hingi ng kaliwa, hingi sa education, hingi sa healthcare, hingi sa housing, hingi sa pension, hingi sa in many things, no? Hindi pwedeng hingi ng hingi. There is no such thing as freelance in government or the free things in government. Someone else has to pay, and very likely it's you who is paying it.
Okay. I stand corrected. No, I just double-checked what I said earlier. It was Shimon Perez who actually enforced a very strict austerity measure, I think to the tune of 30% from every cabinet member. And what he did was he gathered all of them in the room in some location, and nobody could leave until each of them committed the substantial 30% reduction in their budget for every department and every office under their rule. And yun, nakatulong. No? So you're saying that wag tayong hingi ng hingi as Filipinos, and but is there what else can you do? I mean, mag-abroad? Yeah. We go back to we try to be productive as well. Also, respect of the rule of law. Yung maliit na bagay na halimbawa, nagbibiyahe ka, naghatid ka ng mga goods, tapos hindi ka makadiretso kasi may mga sumasalubong, nag-counterflow. Learn to respect the rule of law. So if the law says that is one-way street, wag nyo nang pasukin. Hindi kung motorcycle ka, bisikleta ka, ay sasuway ka doon sa one-way street. O kaya kung red plate ka, paparada ka doon sa no parking area. Kasi kadalasan kasi Cito, the main violator of the law is government itself. Gawa sila ng maraming bawal, pero sila exempted. Ayun. Okay, well, Nonoy, it's been a very interesting conversation. At least I believe that those who are watching today will really reflect or think about what we discussed, and hopefully they will become more inclined to take care of their own needs, not rely on government, that they will try to be productive, that they will try to respect the rule of law, and last but not the least, to be prayerful. Thank you very much, Nonoy.
Salamat, Cito.
Okay, God bless you. Have a great day, my friend. Okay, that's Nonoy Oplas, a columnist of the Business World. And let's now go to our blessing for the week, which comes from the book of Romans, chapter 15, verse 13. May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace in believing, so that by the power of the Holy Spirit, you may abound in hope. Palakasin po natin ang ating pananampalataya, pagdadasal, pag-asa, and may God bless all of you. I'm Cito Beltran, thanking you for joining us this morning. God bless all of you.